Today we're going to talk about feedback. Feedback is really important in an online environment. It's also important in field experiences in face-to-face classrooms. A really broad definition of feedback is any information that can be used by the student to improve student performance on learning outcomes. Feedback can be classified by the type of interaction in which the feedback is administered. Usually it's from the teacher to the student, but sometimes feedback can be peer-to-peer, or student to student. And you even have feedback that is embedded in the media that delivers the content. Some feedback is delivered synchronously, like an immediately corrected quiz. Some feedback is delivered asynchronously, like grading or notes on a paper, or even the asynchronous discussion responses from your peers. The technology available in both learner assessment and the delivery of feedback has expanded greatly in recent years, and it continues to grow. Distance learning environments are really the sites of the development of methods for the use of these tools. This is where a lot of the research is being done. One thing that research has really found is that the proximity of the feedback to the task being performed is directly related to improving the learning process. So really, feedback has to be delivered very promptly.
First, we're going to talk about non-human feedback. Data. Is data feedback? Not usually. In most cases, data needs to be analyzed by a human, such as an instructor, and then delivered as feedback. Assessment of learning can be made by a human or by software. And software programs can generate many types of reports, some to be delivered to the instructor for further analysis, and some simple feedback can be immediately delivered to the student. Course management systems usually incorporate some sort of tracking mechanism to deliver data to instructors and course developers. This data could include navigation data or course management data or demographic data. That data is not really helpful for formative assessment and feedback purposes. But they do have data on student participation and student surveys, which can be used for those purposes. Recent research looked at an example in the Blackboard system, and the question came up, how can data provide evidence to cause instructors to change content or to intervene in the learning process? Unfortunately, the data that is collected is often not reported in a way that's useful to instructors, or they don't have the correct data management tools to use that data for formative assessment and feedback purposes. Data is easily collected on the number of postings a student has done or how often they post, but even more helpful data could be available if we could semantically examine the postings to see if the discussions are on topic. This could tell an instructor if intervention and feedback is needed. Even with this, though, the only way that data would be relevant is if it's accessible, complete, and usable by the instructor. It is only then that the instructor can make a determination of the feedback that would be needed. One recommendation rising out of the research on this topic was that there be a layered approach in instructors getting the skills to use this data. Another would be that instructors work together to strategize on the use of data. And of course, as always, evidence-based best practices reports are really needed so that we can create faculty acceptance and the use of data to improve teaching and learning. One way of gathering assessment information and providing feedback is through clickers or student response devices. One study in a large university found that students thought clickers were fun, but they really weren't worth the cost. The same study also found, though, that students who used clickers performed significantly better at reaching learner outcomes than students who didn't use them. You know, clickers are still widely used on college campuses around the United States, but it's apparent that they will be replaced by handheld devices such as tablets or mobile phones in the near future. Applications for tablets and mobile phones are being developed currently that can collect data to be fed into the course management systems and into other educational software that will analyze the data for formative assessment and feedback purposes. Now we'll move on to human feedback. A large factor in student success in an online course is instructor feedback. Research results have shown that students who receive more teacher comments on assignments rather than just a letter or numerical grade result in higher student course grades. Communication between instructor and student can take place both synchronously and asynchronously. Some instructors like to use online chat sessions in the course management system for feedback sessions. Others prefer to hold traditional office hours in which they can have phone conversations or Skype sessions with their students. Instructor feedback also occurs during online class sessions in which discussions take place. Students have reported that synchronous computer-based discussions with instructors can be a positive form of formative assessment with feedback, and they felt that discussions shifted learning from passive to active in the online component. Students also stated that real-time instructor feedback caused a connection between misconception and correction. Discussion boards can be seen as asynchronous forms of chat sessions between students and closely related to classroom discussions. In order for discussion boards to be effective in providing the type of feedback that leads to critical reflection, the pace of the discussion board assignments should be set to assist students in focusing on course content, and the facilitator should play an important role in keeping the discussion focused and ensuring participation. Sometimes blending synchronous and asynchronous discussions in one unit creates a learning experience that includes the best of both worlds. The synchronous discussion provided students with further affirmation of their knowledge that they learned in the asynchronous discussion, and it also became a discussion where students were more prepared, having already participated in an asynchronous discussion on that topic. Group assignments done with a really clear instructor-created rubric as a whole tend to encourage self-assessment and reflection through feedback from peers. Knowing that one will have to assess the work of another student encourages all students to understand the assessment criteria of the assignment. Thus, collaboration and peer feedback assignments help not only the student receiving, but also the student giving the feedback. A special drawback in online courses is a problem with the social aspect of group interaction, since all communication takes place online electronically. This problem often diminishes as the students proceed in the project. Research results have really shown that feedback assignments can lead to one of the greatest goals of education, lifelong learning.
Today we talked about feedback. From a young age, human beings learn from feedback. In distance learning, the feedback process can create a sense of community in the online classroom. It is a vital part of the learning process in the online classroom. Providing feedback, receiving feedback, utilizing feedback, all of these things create in the learner a lifelong learning skill of the critical reflection process. So feedback is just really an important part of learning and a vital part of the online classroom.